Hey, it's Tom from Tom's Toons. Today's a big day. What you see behind me is a whole bunch of aluminum for boat building. Not pontoon boats, this is for a fishing boat. It's gonna be a 17 and a half foot long, 100-inch beam, 78-inch bottom, modified V or shallow V riverboat. You're getting a 140 horsepower Suzuki tiller jetted out. Big tall sidewalls, big wide boat, comfortable for big river fishing and potentially bigger lake fishing. It's two 39-inch wide pieces for the bottom that's going to be just tacked together, and then we'll get the V going, and then we'll full weld everything before we're done. All welded, all 1/8-inch aluminum, 50-52. Let's get started. So what you just saw me do with the T-square was mark, basically, the marks I'm going to use for my stringers. So these little hash marks, those will go long ways, 2x2 channel. And then we've got bulkheads. So the transom in the first bulkhead will be 3 degrees of dead rise. Then we jump every 3 feet to keep the shape or control the dead rise. We're gonna jump and make it a little deeper as we go, so we have some cutting ability of wakes and waves, but keeping it nice and shallow in the back for buoyancy and quick planing. So that's what I was doing with the T-square, just marking where everything's gonna go. My next step here is just gonna be to get on the welder. We're gonna use a spool gun for this, and just about every 6 inches, we're just gonna go put a quick tack, whole bunch of them, and that'll get everything glued together. So that's how this is gonna work. We're gonna make sure that we don't get any heat warp this way, for sure, on the bottom by running those stringers long ways. That's just gonna keep the bottom nice and flat, how I want it. And then we'll run the bulkheads in to bring the V in and get the shape. And then we'll cut our shape out of the front. This is the first big boat I've done. This was a simple one, little 12-foot, straight flat bottom though, so I didn't have to worry about that. This one, I need to be a mod V, so I've got to play with, we may do a couple different cuts just to test it. You know, start really shallow and then deepen it up if I need to. And that's my plan. I'm just gonna see what happens. This is a little bit of guess and check, but it's my first big boat, so got to start somewhere. I always pick the hottest days to work on this stuff, it seems like. It's our slow time for pontoons, so I've got a little more time on my hand than usual. I gotta get it starting to come together so that on weekends and if I got a few hours at the end of the day, I can jump on it. So I'm gonna be trying to put this together. This first episode is gonna be pretty basic, just getting things lined up and going. And then we'll get into more detail. Hopefully this will be maybe 3 to 4 episodes total. But let's really quick talk about my welding setup, because I know you're gonna ask and I'm happy to show you. Titanium, you can buy that at Harbor Freight. MIG 170 with the 150 amp spool gun. And we're running on 220. My TIG welder is the TIG 200. Very simple machine. All I have is amperage on that. A couple tanks of 100% argon over here. That's it, that's what I do. Mismatching gloves, wear my respirator, especially when I'm MIGging, but try to wear it all the time. It is July 24th today, and I need this boat done by September 15th. We've got a big salmon trip up north. This thing has to be fully done, inside and out. What I've learned, and that little boat and the other one I built, is that heat warp, even on 1/8-inch aluminum, is significant. So maybe if you're working with 3/16, 1/4-inch, those plate boats and stuff, they don't warp as much, but this stuff will pull hard with heat. So I want to make sure I get my stringers in before I try to run anything along width-wise in those bulkheads and the transom. I don't want that thing to warp up on me and have it water flow issues and that kind of thing. So let's cut some parts out and we can hopefully get to welding everything back in tomorrow. That'll be a big day. got a couple of I call them bulkheads, but they're essentially just here to provide the shape of the hull that I want. So these are going to be stringers or bulkheads 1 and 2. They're identical. You cut one and then I use that to trace the second. Those follow the same dead rise as the transom will, which is approximately 3 degrees. And then we've got 2 more going forward. Every 3 feet we'll have one of these bulkheads. As I look at these, it's plenty deep of what I wanted, so I'm going to progress it to probably more like a 6 degree V in terms of our deepest. That'll be the farthest forward bulkhead. What I'm cutting with is just probably the cheapest saw you can get at Home Depot. Plug-in, because you're going to rip through batteries if you don't. And then you just set that blade super shallow, and it cuts right through here without grabbing, jumping, biting, or anything. And when I go to make my curved cuts, setting it shallow like this, where it's just barely getting through the aluminum, will allow me to make curved cuts no problem with this standard size saw blade. I'm back at it for day 2. As you can see, not a whole lot got done yesterday in terms of welding, fabricating. I did cut my bulkheads here to go through just to help shape the bottom of the boat. I picked up the transom sheet this morning, so that's 3/16 inch thick, 100 inches to start by 30 inches tall, so that's what we're going with, and I'm going to cut my transom out of that. My hope today is get this cut, get it ready to install, maybe even tack it on. That's going to give shape to the bottom, but the big thing I need to do is get the C channel. I did 2x2 by 1/8 inch thick 6063 C channel, and that's going to be my supports, or my stringers, if you will, that run the length of the boat. The transom is all tacked up, it's cut. Got to add a little bit of tube here at the top just to reinforce and tie into a corner gusset. So this is 2x4. This leaves room, there's 3 inches here. So that way when the corner comes together with the sidewall, everything's nice and glued together. We finally got that 2x2 C channel. It's in 16-foot pieces, so we got to take one last measurement, cut them down, and then they'll lay in lengthwise on the main part of the floor, the rear of the boat, and then they'll run all the way up to the front bulkhead. And then there will be other bulkheads that run up once we shape the V. So we'll cut the bulkheads in the front to cater to the shape that the boat takes, but we're going to control the shape of the boat in the back. We've got a little heat wave going here in Michigan right now. It's like 90 outside, which means it's pretty much 90 in the shop. But we dogged down all of the stringers. I learned that term from a Timmy Turtle boat building video. But it's a dog of a job. And this is just tacked. We still got to go in and we'll run stitches on opposite sides all the way down, just back and forth, zigzagging, to try to tie these to the bottom as much as possible before we full weld those in or get the stitches in. As soon as we get here tomorrow, we're going to bring in the bulkheads. I got to cut, so the bulkheads, now you can kind of picture it, I have to notch out the bulkheads for each of these stringers, and we weld the bulkheads to the floor and to the tops of the stringers. Makes a really solid piece, reduces any twist. Then it'll pull it into the V, the back 12 feet of the boat, which gives us 6 feet to pull from this front bulkhead forward to get the sheets up into their shape. Maybe I'm not the only one that this happens to, but basically we've had all this week to work on the big boat. Got the transom done, got the stringers just tacked in, and somehow the week started getting away from me. It's Thursday. Goal is to get the bulkheads in. That's gonna help shape the hull. Then we can line up the bow and make those cuts. And I'm hoping by the end of today that we will have the sidewalls on, the bow shaped, maybe even the top rails on. We're gonna do a double rail like I did on the little white boat back there. Really sturdy, looks really nice, clean, soft edges to lean against and grab onto. So let's get to work on this. Marty came in on his bachelor week, home alone time, to help shape the bow. I kind of like it. It's a bit of a steeper bow, which doesn't really bother me. We cut it back, try to make that as flat as possible. That's where the winch and just a step to get in the boat will go. You gotta remember that this is getting 30-inch sidewalls, so that bow looks really high right now, but when we get the sidewalls on there, I think it'll make a little more sense. Now to the transom and then the sidewalls. That was a good, pretty long day of welding. We got the bottom sheets, bulkheads put in, all 4 of them. The shape of the hull came together really nice. Got the transom tacked on, just a couple of knee braces, just baby ones. They'll stay there, but we're gonna do some big braces in the middle, 2 huge ones, probably 3/16 or 1/4 inch aluminum. The sidewalls will go on. The bow was interesting. So haven't done a modified V yet. I definitely like that I had the front bulkhead is at about 6 degrees. And if we walk around, you can see it's a pretty steep rake. I'm not disappointed with that at all, actually. I kind of like the shape of it. I like how it turned out. We cut back that corner and the V in front. I think we get well past that 6 degrees in terms of what we can cut with. So I'm really happy with the shape of the hull and how that's looking. Moving on to sidewalls tomorrow. Marty came in and helped on a Friday afternoon. It's a boat. You gotta get those rails on the top. That'll take out some of the slack in the sheet. 30-inch sidewalls, so there's a lot of metal there. If you're watching the time lapse, probably didn't catch it. This side went on piece of cake. This side was a nightmare, but we made it work and got it to fit in there nicely. So next step is rub rails, and then getting the bulkheads in the front, in the bow, because we got to reinforce the heck out of the bow. So there'll be a series of bulkheads that run widthwise, and then we can build the front deck across. That'll help just take out all the twist. We're gonna shore up the sidewalls with either some flat stock or angle, and then the tackle trays will sit on top of that. But we've made the mistake in the past of waiting to put the tackle tray in, and then the side by then with the heat warp gets all goofy. So I'm gonna straighten those right out with a couple of pieces of angle or flat stock just to make sure it can't move on me. And I think that's gonna protect us. We're doing double tackle trays, so a tall one up high and then a low one for storage and keeping things dry. That's gonna wrap up the first part of this build series. Stay tuned, lots more to come. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe so you get notifications when the next episode comes out.